Hi, and welcome to the show. My name is Lauren Glass, and with me today is FBI Special Agent Jonathan Williamson and Detective Kevin Berry. And today we'll be talking about human trafficking. So, Mr. Williamson, what is human trafficking?
Well, Lauren, thank you for having me on. I've been a special agent now for about 3 years, and 2 years I've spent investigating human trafficking. It's a very important issue, and I'm glad you're talking about it. Human trafficking is, in essence, it's just human beings being forced at the hands of other humans to do different kinds of acts, namely either acts of sexual exploitation or also forced labor. So there are those two main types of human trafficking that we investigate from a law enforcement standpoint.
Now, how does human trafficking happen?
A number of ways. It can be in terms of human trafficking for forced labor. It can be people being forced to work low-paying jobs or jobs in very rough, hot climates or environments. The other kind of human trafficking is for child or adult sexual exploitation. That's namely what I investigate. And in terms of that human trafficking, it involves people of all different ages. I mean, we've seen it as young as 10 or 11 years old, right up to adults. And we know it exists internationally, it exists nationally, and even right down where I am in the city of Chicago, right down to a local level.
Now, Detective Berry, do you usually see cases of human trafficking in Brookfield or even just locally?
No, as far as a local law enforcement agency goes, it's something we haven't experienced. I feel like there's the lack of knowledge and lack of training as far as a local department goes. But it's something that we have not dealt with. If it comes to that, we would contact a federal agent to help us assist on the human trafficking.
And I can speak a little to that. We certainly, as the federal organization, reach out to the locals because cases begin in the local areas, the cities, the towns. Of course, I think in any heavily populated area like a city of Chicago, you're going to have more so than, say, a Brookfield or a Plainfield, Illinois, or some of the more rural areas. But in Chicago, the FBI, we've started a task force with it's the Chicago Crimes Against Children Task Force. We have that with the Chicago Police Department. There are currently 2 agents fully assigned to it, and we have 5 officers and 1 sergeant from Chicago Police, and that has been it's been a very good combination because you get the expertise, the local expertise from the streets, from the Chicago Police, and you bring that together with the resources of the federal government, and we've been able to really tackle more human trafficking cases than we would have back when it was really just 1 agent a couple years ago. So part of our efforts as the federal law enforcement agency is to train and bring locals up to speed and utilize them, but also make them aware of any human trafficking that goes on in their area, how we can help, and in the end work together with them.
Now, where are human trafficking cases usually found?
Everywhere. That's the easy question.
I mean, is there
easy answer to your question.
Is there like one specific area that you usually find them in, or?
Well, you will see them. I think you would see them more so in impoverished areas, and the reason being, at least from the sexual exploitation involving children, which I primarily work, the victims that we see are victims that come from either broken homes or they're runaways or people who don't have solid ground to stand on or a solid wall to back up into. So when these young people leave home and they don't really have any good direction, they're looking for some solidarity in their life, and these human traffickers, which are also commonly referred to as pimps, find these easy targets, if you will, and exploit them for these, the sexual exploitation, which in turn is monetarily a big business.
Now, Detective Berry, what kinds of people participate in human trafficking, do you think?
I would go along the lines of as far as any type of person, as far as criminally, will take these people and human traffic. As far as them themselves, I would say that they would be, from other immigrants from other countries who are here illegally and don't know how the laws work, so they're scared to come to local law enforcement and bring it to our attention because they don't know the laws here and they feel lost and victims.
Same question, Mr. Williamson.
And what exactly was the question?
What kinds of people participate in human trafficking?
And do you mean from the trafficker or the person trafficked?
The trafficker.
Well, I can answer both.
Yeah, you can do both.
As far as the human trafficker, it's tough to say exactly what kind, but in essence, it's the person that feels as though they can go after the vulnerable and win them over, whether it's from promises of marriage or substance, food or makeup and hair, and anything that might make that person feel loved or wanted. That's one way. As far as labor is concerned, again, it's tough to pinpoint the individual, but someone who needs cheap labor and is willing to exploit individuals who don't have a place to go or don't make much money, and they're willing to put up with what they have to put up with for meager pay.
Okay, well, right now we're going to take a break, and so stay tuned in, and we'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to the show. My name is Lauren Glass, and with me are two special FBI agents, Jonathan Williamson and Nicole Robertson, and we are still continuing talking about human trafficking. Now, what happens when you get caught? Okay,
well, by the time a person is caught, if you will, by law enforcement, an investigation has been underway on that person for quite some time. It could be as long as a year or more, or it could be 6 months. By that point, though, law enforcement has really built a case up against that individual, and by that, we've gotten to the point as though we feel we can prove without a reasonable doubt that the person is guilty of trafficking humans. You can do this a number of ways, whether it's through documentation, through surveillance, and so forth, but ultimately, your case is really only as good as the victims that you have. So one of the hardest parts for us is to get victims to the point where they're okay to testify in an open court. That's a huge piece of the puzzle. But after you have gotten to the point that you take the offender into custody, they may go to trial, you prepare for trial, you get all your witnesses together, and the perfect outcome for law enforcement is they're found guilty and they serve a punishment that's justified.
Okay, and so what do the people make the traffickers do? Like, services that they would make them do?
In sex trafficking, it's a sex act, any sex act in exchange for anything of value. So they are going to perform any sex act, whatever the trafficker is basically telling them that they have to perform. In labor services, it would be forced labor, usually work as a nanny or in a restaurant or... And
do they get paid
No.
for any of that? No, they don't?
Any funds or anything that they receive in value usually goes to the trafficker, so that the victim themselves doesn't receive anything. The trafficker receives and reaps the benefits from their labors.
So do you see more sexual, favors and acts than actual just labor itself, or?
With what we do, yes, that's all that we get is.
The labor exists, but yes. Our sole responsibility is to investigate the sexual exploitation aspect of it. Both surely exist, but like we said, we're concentrate on one over the other. For the labor, like she said, the person working, the person sweating, the person in that bad situation, they're not going to get any money. Someone's paid, the trafficker is paid, but that's what makes the whole process so brutal, is that they're put in these terrible situations but reap no benefit from it.
And you said that you see kids, as young as like 10, 11, and they can do any job, right? Like the person, the owner of them, makes them do whatever they want them to do, so they can get. Is there like a specific amount of money that they get for this? I mean,
it depends on the trafficker. A lot of times the trafficker will set what they need to earn in a day, or set what they need to earn for an act, and then once they receive the funds or the money that's turned over to the trafficker.
Is there certain ages for doing specific jobs? Like, do you have to be, like a certain age to do?
No. Whatever's going to make the money is however old you need to be. It doesn't matter if you can perform the job, then you can do the work.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Yeah. The traffickers really don't take age really into consideration. And that's the reason. That's why our jobs exist, because there are such young people exploited out there. That's the driving reason behind the Chicago Crimes Against Children Task Force that I was telling you about, because it's become such an issue, and we see it day to day. Unfortunately, we like I said, we see it every single day. So, but at the same time, that's what drives us to do this job. And put the hours that we put in, and the time and the resources that can put into it.
So, for the job that you guys do, I mean, do you guys get calls like all the time, like 24/7? You guys never have like any breaks? Because it's shocking how this happens, So
yeah, every FBI agent's technically on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're tied to your cell phone, absolutely. In ours, because we're a reactive squad, so we respond once something happens typically. So if a juvenile is recovered in the middle of the night, yes, one of us or the agent on call would be the one to respond in the middle of the night, because we like to go out and talk to the victim while the victim is readily available and able to speak to us. Right. in a confined or safe setting.
What's the worst call-in you've ever gotten?
It's tough to say. It's really tough to say. I mean, I guess we've had instances when the local police officers may do a prostitution sting, and they come across a juvenile who may be not even the age of high school, and that's a tough situation, because this person came from, well, they didn't come from a home, or the home they came from was bad enough that they left, and this was their only alternative. So just that alone can make the job tough, to see people in such a bad situation.
Yeah, I would say I had a call in the middle of the night with one of my victims who was thrown from a car after being victimized by her trafficker. And I don't know exactly the reason. She may not have made enough money, or had gotten into a fight or tried to leave him, but she was thrown from a moving car. So I got a call from her family saying that she was unconscious, and going there to see her with her face like all wrapped up was probably one of the worst calls I've gotten about a victim in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And then aside from the physical, and even when people are taken out of the sex trafficking, we've seen it recently that individuals who have been removed from it and are now in a good place still have repercussions that will take professional help to get rid of. They have mental problems that just don't go away, and they're not going to go away on their own without help.
Okay, well, thank you, and that is all the time we have today. My name is Lauren Glass, and I want to thank my three guests, Detective Kevin Berry and FBI Special Agents Jonathan Williamson and Nicole Robertson. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.